Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Storytellers. I'm Graham Nolan. This is the show where we talk about and deconstruct storytelling techniques with interviews or by going over the work of artists that have since passed. Today, we're going to be talking about a true legend, and that word's tossed around a lot, but in his case, it really does apply. It's Steve Ditko. Now, most of you will know his work, of course, as the co-creator of Spider-Man, one of the most iconic popular culture figures in the world. He also really created Doctor Strange. He said that Stan's contribution was calling him Steven. And Stan has also admitted that, Doctor Strange came pretty much as a full package to him. So that came from the mind of Steve Ditko as well. So we're going to talk a little bit about his history and his work. And we'll start with the fact that he was born in 1927 in Johnstown, PA. Parents were working class people, so he had a working class upbringing. He served time in the military post World War II, and then he got he got his start working with Jerry, who was the creator of the Joker and one of Bob Kane's first and best assistants. He went to school and studied with under Jerry Robinson at what is now known as the School of Visual Arts, but it was known then as the Cartoonist and Illustrator School. And Jerry would have editors and people in the business come in, and one time he had Stan Lee come in from Timely Comics. Or was it Atlas then? Might have been Atlas. And that's the first time he had ever seen Steve Ditko's work. And that was in the early 1950s. After he left school and left the tutelage, if you will, of Jerry Robinson, he went to work for Simon and Kirby, Joe Simon and Jack Kirby, and doing background work and inking and stuff for them. But he learned a lot from Mort Meskin, who also worked there too, and gives a lot of credit to Meskin and how he approached storytelling and panel design and that kind of stuff. And when you look at Steve's early work, you can definitely see a Mort Meskin impression there. I see a lot of Joe Kubert too, even though he might not have been influenced by Kubert at that time. In the early 50s, their styles were very similar. And I attribute that to that they came to the decisions in their artwork from a similar perspective, how to solve storytelling or drawing problems. And then Joe went off in a different direction, and Steve went off in a different direction. He worked with Charlton in 1954, started his career with Charlton, and he continued to work for Charlton up until their demise in, 1986, I think. Charlton was kind of a low man on the totem pole, but what Ditko liked about working for them is that he had a lot more freedom than he did working for anybody else. They really didn't care, and they allowed Ditko that freedom to use that imagination of his. Now, the term genius always gets tossed around, and in artists, like people say, my favorite artist is blah, blah, blah. And I've come to realize that what they mean most of the time when they say my favorite artist is such and such, is that they mean it's their favorite draftsman, or they really like the way that person draws something. In Ditko's case, and in the definition I use for an artist, is that he's somebody who creates something that didn't exist before. Now, it's easy enough to extrapolate known quantities and draw them, say, in a futuristic way. Let's say a flying car or a spaceship even. You can take modern technology and figure something out and use your creative imagination and draw something like that. There's Steve right there. Famous picture of him. And I love this, the think part. But back to what I was saying. What happens when you have to draw something like eternity? Something abstract like that. Well, this is how he solved it. He created a character called Eternity, and came up with some just really, really cool psychedelic and abstract version of what eternity would look like if it was, you know, this oblique concept into an actual character. And that to me is where the artistry comes in. Kirby could do that too. Kirby was another one. And Kirby and Ditko, they created a visual language that didn't exist, that people still copy. No, that's not it. That's not it. That's not it. Where the hell is it? Ah, here we go. I think some of his best work was on Doctor Strange when he was working at Marvel. I think he felt closer to that character. But look at this. Look at this crazy stuff. This is, how do you write? I mean, Steve plotted most of this stuff too. So it's not like, excuse me, that he got a script that said, okay, I want you to draw him on some amoeba-like planet in this dimensional thing, describing all this kind of background stuff, because you can't describe that stuff. So that comes out from the mind of the artist himself. And that's what I'm talking about when I say a visual language, because I'm working on a project that I'm writing for Brett Blevins. And you can't describe this kind of stuff, but I could say to him, you know, they go into this, you know, Ditko-esque dimension. So now it's an adjective, Ditko-esque. And the artist knows what I mean. Because Ditko created this abstract universes and just amazing visuals. This is early Ditko work. This strikes me, as I talked about Joe Kubert. You look at that face, it's a very Kubert-esque face, particularly for that period. After Steve left Marvel in 1966, he did some work at Charlton, but he also did work, and I think some of his best work, when he went to work for Jim Warren's publications. We talked a little bit about this when Walt and Wheezy were on last week, because Wheezy was an editor up there and a writer as well. And the talent pool that came through that place. Warren allowed Ditko to really expand his imagination, you know, into less restricted realms, if you will. And this particular image really strikes me as way ahead of its time. This stuff right here, these twisting shapes going up, this kind of thing here with the eyeball and it twisting. This stuff looks like Rob Bottin's Thing from the John Carpenter film in 1982. This was done long before that. So a guy like Steve Ditko was thinking about those kind of really crazy, what's the word I'm looking for? Morphing of imagery. The other thing that he got to do when he was working over at Warren that I thought was really great is he got to use washes and gray tones to enhance his work. You know, this is wonderful stuff here. Some more Warren work. This kind of stuff here is when Steve was working at Atlas and early Marvel books on Tales of Suspense, Tales to Astonish, all the monster stuff, the pre-Fantastic Four stuff. And he'd really come into that style, which he would bring later on into Spider-Man. The stuff about Steve's work, particularly in this era between the 1950s and up until the late 1960s, was that it was really well drawn. He paid a lot of attention to the dynamics of the drawings and used some really great lighting effects on his figures. Later on, his work got, I don't want to say sloppy, but it got less interesting because the figures began to look like mannequins that weren't fleshed out. But at this period in his career, he was putting the drawing in. And nobody, with maybe the exception of Kirby, could draw faces like Ditko, character faces. His bad guys. You look at the terrible Tinkerer from Amazing Spider-Man 1. Just even ancillary background villains, bad guys, thugs, that kind of stuff. He gave them great hairdos and eyebrows and facial features and stuff. And I just marvel at the character that would get put into these throwaways. You could almost figure out what this guy's past was like basically by, there was no generic bad guys, no generic looks. They all look different and they all look really cool. I love this image. Again, this is from early Marvel stuff. Oh, here it is, Tales of Suspense, number 15. I love the negative space here that Ditko used on a lot of these splash pages, all enhanced by this well-placed blacks. And it's just a simple amorphous blob, so to speak, but it has shape too, how he places the blacks here. This is some of Steve's a little bit later work when he was doing more of his personal stuff. This one's from 1972. Mr. A was a character he created to sort of work out the objectivism that he had embraced, that thought process of objectivism that Ayn Rand had promoted, which he was a big devotee of. This is my favorite work by Ditko at DC. I believe this is 1968 when he created the Creeper. And this was a great character. He moved like Spider-Man. You can see Ditko's still doing the shadowing and lighting effects that he did so well in the 50s and 60s and got away from later on with those more mannequin styled figures. But this was a fun book. And in fact, towards the end of our run on Detective Comics, Chuck and I had wanted to do a spin-off and do a Creeper series. And in the annual, it was a Batman annual, the one that tied into JL Apes, where the apes there was like talking apes and stuff. We had put billboards in the background about Jack Ryder, who was the Creeper's alter ego. And put all these little Easter eggs in there about this coming series that we wanted to do with the Creeper. But there was some, editorial shifting of chairs and things were changing at DC at that point, and it was not meant to be. So there we are, my friends. A little overview of the great Steve Ditko and what makes his work so great. If you haven't seen his other stuff outside, Doctor Strange and Spider-Man, check that stuff out, the horror comics, the Charlton comics, and really dive into some of his really cool stuff. And of course the Warren stuff that we talked about. So let's see who's in the room this afternoon here. This is a different time frame. Obviously, we're in the holiday season. We're coming up on Christmas in 2 days. I'm sure you have shopping to do and family to see, and that's why I decided to do it this afternoon. I have family in as well, and I want to spend time with them in the evening, but I didn't want to not do the broadcast, so that's why I decided to do it in the afternoon. I figured, well, maybe we'll catch some new faces too. There we go. There's George. Welcome to the room, as usual, my friend. Merry Christmas, Graham. All in all, Steve Ditko, one of the greats. Graham, did you get my email from 5 to 6 days ago concerning the Chinook art? Yes, I replied to that. Hello, Graham. Hello, chat. Huge Ditko fan. Looking forward to this. Oh, I hope it was good. Yeah. This is the first time I got to use this. My green screen. I can't remember if I used it for Walton Weezy or not. I know I used it on the Saturday morning Western Roundup. Hey, Rob. Rob's a big fan of Ditko. That's good. Leg kick. Hello. Welcome. Mr. A is a favorite of his. Oh, cool. Fearless Freep is wishing everyone a Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, everybody. George loves Spider-Man. Doctor Strange also enjoyed The Creeper and Hawk and Dove. My all-time favorite Ditko work was what he did for Warren Publishing. That was Ditko at his best. Yeah, I showed some of that stuff, and I really like it as well. Good afternoon, folks. Merry Christmas, Adam, as my kids call Christmas Eve Eve. Merry Christmas, Adam. Okay. Hey, Jesse. I also see a strong stylistic link in the 50s work of Ditko and Kubert. Ah, okay, good. I'm not crazy then, Hillary. Kaiju wishing everyone a Merry Christmas. Love Ditko's horror stuff at Charlton and Creepy. Yeah, Ditko, like I said, when you that abstraction that he was so good at, his brain just thought in different ways. And like I said, when you have to draw something that you can ground, in some form of reality, you can work it out. But when you have something so abstract as dimensional universes and things like eternity, that stuff is, if I got a script like that, without the inspiration from Ditko, having done it before me, I don't know what I would do. Probably crawl into my bed. There's a disappointing lack of necromancy on this stream. Well, get out your Ouija boards. Hail, amigos. Dr. Mask wants to know what the project is I'm working on with Brett Blevins. Well, the title hasn't been announced yet, so I shall keep that quiet until Aftershock makes an announcement on that. Hail me, hail you, Todd. Almost missed the Storytellers. Can't have that. I love Ditko's work and would never have forgiven myself if I missed this session. Well, I'm glad you made it, Don. Of course, all this stuff gets logged on the YouTube channel. So if you haven't done so already, I know most of you guys are subscribers, but if there's new folks here that haven't subscribed, please crush that subscription and like button. George missed that Walton Weezy Storyteller. We had a bad snowstorm that night. I was out shoveling. I'll have to go back and watch it. That was a very good one. I had some technical glitches that were not my fault. My computer froze up, and I couldn't move any of the comment streams and stuff, and ended up having to crash out of it. Some of his body joint at Marvel positioning were interesting, to say the least. Not sure what you're trying to say there. Maybe that his figure work was a little weird for your taste? Johnny Rando loves the creeper. Oh, there it is. Where did that go? We just bounced. Body, here we go. Body joint positioning, that is. Okay. That's what I kind of figured. As a Ditko enthusiast, it's really fun to hear you discuss and display his art. Thank you. Leg Kick One likes the question. I never read the question. What do you mean by draftsman? What or who would be an example? Well, John Buscema would be a draftsman. John Romita would be a draftsman. They both draw beautiful pictures, compose beautiful figures, great storytellers, but neither of them created anything or create anything that in the same way that Ditko and Kirby did. That they created it not only characters, universes, but visual language. You know, people may copy a drawing style, like how John Buscema, puts together a figure, or how Johnny Romita, inks something or whatever. But that's different than a visual language when you can say, give me a negative zone. Okay, what's a negative zone? Well, Kirby draws a negative zone. Ditko draws dimensions. So that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. And that's not to shade draftsmen. I mean, I'm more of a draftsman than an artist in the way that Ditko is. I mean, although I write my own and create my own material too, but I'm nowhere near that kind of level of creating stuff that doesn't exist in a way that you have to create something out of complete whole cloth, like I said, these dimensions and that kind of crazy oblique stuff. Any thoughts on the short-lived Stalker series, The Man Without a Soul? I've seen the Stalker. I mean, it's got Wally Wood inking it. It's great that way, but I never read it, to be honest. Mr. A is actually a really fun comic, really underrated. Well, Ditko was really, he was right there at the peak of his powers, too, when he was doing that. Dale A has picked up a copy of the public domain reprint of the complete Ditko question. Not good quality, but I wanted a physical copy. I don't know what the original comics go for on the back issue market. You really enlightened me about Ditko. Thank you, sir. You're welcome, Vaughn. The Fly was a cool character. Blue Beetle returns. So many great, innovative, and interesting looking characters. Yeah, that's the other thing I love about Ditko, and I talked about like his ancillary characters, his thugs and his bad guys and stuff like that. That they were all so interesting looking. You look at the first 38 issues of The Amazing Spider-Man, and everything about that comic and about that character is in those first 38 issues. All the major characters, all the major villains were all created under Ditko. Romita came in and he made the strip perhaps better drawn, the girls sexier, Peter Parker better looking, and actually boosted the sales numbers on it. It became Marvel's best-selling book under Romita. But nothing new or really creative came out of that particular run afterwards. I mean, the only major villain to come out under Romita's run was the Kingpin. And the Kingpin was, a basic mafioso bad guy. Interesting looking, yes, but not to the level that Ditko's characters had. Rob Fellows says, "Hey there, Graham Nolan story chat, breaking Ghostbusters law and crossing the streams at the moment. But hey, Steve Ditko." I don't know what other stream is running right now, but uh, too bad for them. Hey, Billy, how are you today? You're welcome, sir. It's always great to see how an artist I've admired looks at some of the greats. Thanks for sharing. You're welcome, Randy. Thank you for tuning in. I do appreciate it. You hadn't with Walt and Wheezy. You hadn't. What hadn't I done? I don't know. I don't know what I hadn't done. Oh, Merry Christmas, Hans. For those looking to grab some early Ditko, go to Amazon and search the comics. It's a publisher that puts out public domain comics, and there are a few volumes of Ditko's work there for around $15 a trade. I've grabbed some Skywald trades there as well. Oh, that's good to know. Cool. Chris Daughtry. Hello, Mr. Nolan. Great subject. Love his Spider-Man and Doctor Strange work as well as his work on The Question. Wish he could have truly seen how his work was loved and how he was appreciated. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, Chris. I don't think that Ditko really cared about fan adoration or anything like that. He did stuff to please himself, and I think he was very pleased, with his output. Would Gene Colan be a great draftsman? Drafters were great at drawing buildings, and Colan's buildings were a character unto themselves. Yeah, Colan's definitely a great draftsman. He's also a stylist. And that is, he stylized everything in the same way that Joe Kubert was a stylist. The draftsmanship is just one aspect of their work. You can read early Ditko horror on the Digital Comic Museum. Oh, okay, cool. Good to know. Good afternoon, Noel. Thanks for checking in. Romita co-created the Rhino as well as the Shocker, as well as helped create Wolverine. Or did Ditko create Rhino and Shocker? Romita says he developed look. Yeah, I forgot about the Rhino. Yeah, the Rhino is another really cool design. The Shocker, not so much. B-level villain at best. And Romita did design Wolverine. Yes, that's true. Oh, Vaughn was commenting on my green screen with Walt and Wheezy. Okay. So I did have it for them. Rob Fellows, anytime. Love a lot of old horror comics out there. There are some great hardcovers of some of the same stories. Okay, let's scoot by here, see if I got everybody covered. Yeah, I think I've covered everybody who was posted in here. There's a couple new comments. My daughter Mary, fancy background. Well, you haven't seen the green screen yet. Yeah, I'm moving up in the world. Okay, Billy, thank you for tuning in. Alrighty, gang. I think we got it all covered here. I want to thank everybody for coming into the stream, and particularly for following the series that I'm doing, the Storytellers. I'm working on another big guest. I haven't locked down yet, so I can't announce it. So until then, I think next Wednesday I'm going to be discussing the work of Jack Cole, who created Plastic Man. So Rob, if you're listening, you will love that. I know you're a huge Jack Cole fan. And so that ought to be fun, unless my guest decides that they can make it next Wednesday. Oh, we got a couple more things have come in here. Thanks for your info, Graham. Awesome hearing from you. Thank you, Leg Kick 1. Dr. Maskus wishes everybody a Merry Christmas. What's my opinion on Denny O'Neil reinventing the question, changing him a lot from Ditko's original? I don't really have an opinion, to be honest, because the question wasn't a comic I read either at Charlton or at DC. So I really don't know. So, okay, gang. Let me just take a moment and say, I wish every one of you a very Merry Christmas. I hope you're spending it with family and loved ones, and have a great and safe holiday. Remember, there's no calories, so eat as much as you want. And we will catch you back here on Saturday for the Saturday morning Western Roundup. Haven't decided what movie yet, so it'll be a surprise. And then next week, we'll either have a guest or it will be the legendary Jack Cole. So have a great holiday, and we'll catch up with you then. Okay? Bye-bye.